Hello, welcome to the Hope Clinician Overview. This video will focus on the clinician's view of Hope changes within Suncoast. As we know, Hope is a CMS regulatory update that is set to go live on October 1st, 2025. There are many similarities between HIS and Hope and several new items that we are going to highlight. So Hope focuses on the clinical assessments, and with that, there are additional time points involved for collecting data. Besides the admission visit, there are two additional assessments called the Hope Update Visit, or HUV, and completion of those records are dependent on the duration of the client's admission. There is also an additional assessment required based on the review of the client's symptom severity called an SFV, or symptom follow-up visit. That SFV is going to be required within 2 days of symptom assessment where there's a pain or non-pain impact that was rated either a moderate or severe. We have updated Suncoast to give more visibility into that symptom impact and if that is due in 2 days. And we've also added additional guidances as you work through those new time points of the HUV as to what data elements are required. As a quick overview, here's our calendar. So I can see that my initial visit was on the 2nd. I admitted on the 1st. Within 2 days of that initial visit, an SFV was required. Because on my initial visit, again, I had a symptom assessment where there was a symptom impact of either a moderate or severe. Next, we can see that HUV window opened on the 7th and went through the 16th. This time, there was no symptom impact assessment that said a moderate or severe, so I have no SFV. And then our last one is day 17th through the 28th. In this case, our patient passed away. We can see that HUV2 was completed timely, and on that symptom impact, I did require an SFV, which happened the next day. So let's look at the solution. We have added a new section under to-do tasks that's focused for the clinician on their clinical assessment data. So the focus here is on the data that would be writing to that Hope record. I can see various states. So I can see where the data has not been completed at all. I can see where it is in WIP. This line is going to be important too because I see that within my clinical assessment, an SFV is required. That status of yes lets me know that it's required, but it has not yet been completed. If that SFV was completed and signed, that yes would convert to a completed, and that SFV due date is going to drop off. Otherwise, when I see a yes, I know based on the date of my clinical assessment, I have 2 days to complete it. So in this case, it looks like Ralph was just assigned a clinical assessment, and it was alerted that there was at least one of those assessments for a symptom impact that was either a moderate or severe. So we know within 2 days, we need to get back out there to Ralph and check on his symptoms. You'll note that all of these they're not in the future, is what I mean to say. So your start date is showing what is currently active. An agency could decide to see what's in the future too, if decided, but by default, you'll just see where the timeline has opened. The last piece, if there are Hope assessments that were completed, we're going to hide those automatically. You have the ability to unhide them if desired. So I could look here and see where everything in my form status is e-signed if I desired, but by default, you're just seeing what's outstanding. The last note here too is that if you are a clinician who works across teams, we're showing your primary team. In this case, I am on HQRP. I also work with Ocean View. I am a clinician on Ralph's caseload, so I can look across and see what is going to be coming up for him as well. Let's dive into the client chart. So if I look at my appointments today, I see that I have one coming up for Reagan. I know that Reagan is going to have an admission today, so we can go ahead and look at that. So some groundwork was already completed. My client is admitted. And I can see that on the side, I have a Hope admission workflow. I have quickly jumped to, so as part of the admission process, Some of the key elements that we want to capture now are ethnicity, race, and preferred language. We want to ensure that we have those values because on both our assessment forms and the HOPE record, the value for ethnicity, race, and preferred language will come directly from demographics. You'll also note, if you were familiar with the previous options, that these now reflect exactly what CMS is requesting. It has another benefit that if that client has multiple ethnicities or multiple races, you now have the opportunity to select them. So I can change this to be multi-select as well as with race. Those checkboxes will allow multiple selections. I'm going to go ahead and save and go to our HOPE client browser. So in this view, Reagan was just admitted today, so we don't have a lot of documentation. We have added new details in our chevron for related forms and related appointments. We'll see that populated after we complete our assessment for Reagan. But what it's going to do is any forms within this timeline of 724 to 729 will appear here. So if I am an agency that uses an initial or I just have my admission RN visit, it would show here. Likewise, that SFV form, if one is required, would appear here too. Under related appointments also, I can see anything that's assigned to me. As an agency, I would have the option to say, when a client is admitted, I can create HUV appointments automatically and show them here. So that could leave little breadcrumbs for the scheduler to get assigned to the client. So that's an option as well. Let's get into our form though. So for my assessments, I see I have a HOPE initial and comprehensive. I already have my appointment assigned to me, so I can convert it to my visit. And here is our default RN comprehensive form for admission. We can see a brand new data elements that have been added. You know how you now have a viewer. So this is showing me what are the current client diagnosis. So for this client, these are the ones that have been assigned to date. I can use that information to populate this new type of element that is allowing me to see all of the options for the principal diagnosis and the comorbidities. So I can select the values, I can select the text, and I'll write in that code to me. If I wanted to manually do that, that would be an option as well. Down here, as you might be used to selecting the text to select a pick list item, you have that ability. So I saw above that they also had dementia, so I can click on my checkbox, an option, or I could select the words too and get that selected. Down here at the bottom, you'll see one of our new elements that is in HOPE is death is imminent. There is conditional logic in our standard forms that when I say yes, I can enter in a little more information as to what I'm seeing that leads me to believe that death is imminent. I can also check on our new help that's been expanded, and I can see what each of those options mean. This link here, too, if you are on the internet, would take you specifically to the guidance to get more information, too. So that's another extended feature in our help as well. Related to what we saw from the demographics, so I can see that these are elements that came directly from demographics. You'll note that they're gray. So if there's a change that I need to make to ethnicity, race, or preferred language, I need to go back to demographics and change it at the source of truth. I can't change it in the form and have it right back. It needs to be in the source of truth, which is demographics for those three elements. Another element that is new is the language interpreter. I can go ahead and say no. We see some other elements that might be familiar. Click on those values and continue on. Again, you'll note that the information message is coming directly from the manual, and I have the option to click on that link if I want some more information. So again, here's conditional logic for our strain of shortness of breath. This is going to make this mandatory, as you might be used to seeing. and I can go through and enter in my other values. One of the new pain questions that was added was neuropathic pain, so you'll see that one. And then the big section that's added is our symptom impact screening. So here again, we have conditional logic. If I hit yes, then I can complete all of those symptom impacts. So I can assess how is this impacting the patient and go through in this new button control and just quickly, well, not quickly, but click on what's needed based on my assessment with the patient. We do have logic built into Suncoast that if you have a symptom that is marked as a moderate or severe, when you save the form, you'll be prompted to create an appointment. So in doing so, we wanted to give you the ability to have that more front and center that an SFB is going to be due. So let's go ahead and save that. So here is my appointment that is prompting me to create. I know that it's going to be a routine in person. Based on my visit date for that symptom impact screening, so on 7/24, I did my impact. I saw there was a moderate, so within 2 days, I need to do that SFB. By default, it's going to default it to the next morning. You have the opportunity to change that value if you know that you will not be available at 8 a.m. and want to change that for yourself. Or there's other logic in the system too that automatically default this to what we're calling a pending staff person. So that's just an ID that acts as a placeholder for the scheduler to then assign out to a staff who is available at that time. One other piece of validation in here is that I know that by the 26th, I need to complete that SFB. So if I push this to the 27th and try to save, I'll see a warning message that's going to alert me that that is more than 2 days. With anything else in Suncoast, you can continue, but you have that warning that you probably will not be compliant if that is when the SFB takes place. So I'm going to change that back to my default. So on the 25th, go ahead and save. I have a lot else going on with this client apparently, and I can be done with that visit. So now if we look again at our hope status, we would see, and our manager would see, and everyone else who's keep an eye on hope, that we have done our first step. So our comprehensive form is in process. Part of that assessment did show that we have to follow up with it in 2 days for our SFB. So I can see that value is now populated with this 26 as to when I have to complete that SFB due by. The regulation would allow me to go out later in the day on the 24th and complete it, but I know by the 26th, that is my time frame. I wanted to also quickly show you, so for an HUV, there is going to be some special logic. So let's open one that is in process. Let's go to Riker. I apologize, we needed to go to Riley. So Riley is already in process. So again, I can see when I look at my workflows that it is showing me that all of my documentation is not yet complete. So in this case, oh, I apologize, it is complete. The HUVIN has been signed. In this case, we did not do that SFV. So let's change our focus and do that SFV for this client. So I have until the 26th to do it. I'm going to return later that day and complete my SFV. So you'll see that for the SFV, it is a unique standalone form. It is not a unique standalone visit type. The form is what is important. So to complete it, I would either say yes or no. If I say no, I have to give the reason why I was not able to complete it. That would be mandatory. If I say yes, and then you'll see that it's very consistent with our previous set of questions as far as symptom impact. So in this case, we're going to say that everything is doing much better, so not at all. And when I go ahead and sign, and I look at that hope form, Now on my browser, you can see that the date I had for the SFV has been cleared. There is nothing due because it's complete. Everything is e-signed. So my status now is e-signed. So if we go back, I would expect as a scheduler that if I had an HUV that was due, then it would be scheduled to me. So I am going to go off the rails a little bit and open up Peter and pretend that I did have an appointment that said my HUV was going to be scheduled today. So if we look at Peter, we can see that the Hope HUV1 is active. I have a red bell that shows me that I'm within my timeline of 7:23 and after. I can see from that red bell that the clinical documentation has not been completed. For that admission too, just as a note, we see that the red bell is there too because everything is not e-signed. So they have not completed that assessment. Part of what I can see in this WIP too is that the assessment was started, but the symptom impact was not completed, and that's why we have an unknown. Focusing back on HUV though, let's create another appointment and look at what that form looks like. So here, apologize, on the wrong one. So for an HUV, the form does look a little different, and there's one very important functional changes that need to be aware of. So if I'm told by my scheduler that today is the day for the HUV, one of the most important pieces that I need to focus on is what we're calling the HUV indicator. So this first question at the top, will this visit be used for a Hope HUV record? It's going to be key to have that data flow into the Hope HUV record. So I do want to say yes if I know that this is my HUV record. And with that, when I save, I'm going to see new guidances that say, okay, if this is an HUV record form, then you need to fill out all of those related Hope elements. So I will fill out a few just so we don't get a ton of values. So yes, I'm going to just do a few values. Since I'm a great clinician, I'm going to fill out everything as expected. And then I'm going to go ahead and save. So again, those validations that are coming up at the bottom are based on me saying that this is my HUV visit. So you'll see these new guidances on save, where we had guidances on the required fields on signing. Now they show up at save. So I'll see element is required to complete the HUV. All of these elements right now are incomplete. I can still save this form and go on to my next task. Maybe there's an emergency that's taking me away from this, but I will not be able to sign this form until I've completed everything. So if I update, the view changes a little bit. Now we see the title is required fields, but you'll note that those same data elements, they now have a suffix that's a HUV required, but I will not be able to sign this form until I've completed all of those. So a piece to that too is that it might be, or by CMS's standards, a no is a valid answer. But we're saying the best practice of this HUV form, if I want to save and complete it, is that I do want to go further and make sure that I've completed that symptom assessment. So to be able to complete that, I would need to say yes. And then that would give me access to those questions so I can go ahead and do my symptom assessment for this patient. The similar logic that ran on save, because I do have a severe or moderate symptom, is going to run again based on this value. So if this is a no, then we will not show that alert that says that an SFV is required in 2 days. And so part of that is to give flexibility so that if you are outside of your hope window and your agency would still like you to complete a symptom impact to ensure you're giving the best care to the client, you won't get nagged that you have to do an SFV within 2 days because you're outside of that hope window. While in that hope window and you are using it for an HUV, then you want to ensure that that HUV indicator is assigned. So again, on save, if you have a moderate or severe, you'll be prompted for that appointment. So again, on this case, I do need to go ahead and do it I see I did it on the 24th, so it prompts me that my range is the 24th to the 26th. I can save that and know that this is going to be within 2 days that I'll get everything done that I need to. So if I saved again, I see that I have less options that are required for me. But again, they're not going to go away until a full comprehensive review for the HUV is completed. Let's close out of here again. And we can just check on our values. So I can see it is WIP, and I do see that yes for the SFB due. That is the clinician overview. So again, you'll see the information just for the client in the Hope Client Browser. If you want to see a view of all of your clients and where they stand, then you would look in the Hope Due. You had the functionality to jump to a client directly from that client's name. Likewise, the last little piece that I'll say is that if you were in a record that was not complete, if I didn't get time and I'm following back up, when I click on this link, it's going to take me directly back into that form. And I can complete my value and sign as needed. Thank you for your time today.